What's up, guys? So today we have a question from Period. I think that's what it looks like, right? I'm not crazy. Question for a future video. In your darknet vendor days, do you think if you operated alone and had a smaller darknet business that you wouldn't have gotten caught or gotten caught until later? My point is, the more moving parts you involve, the larger you expand it. It seems like it increases your odds of getting caught. Yeah, I could see how that is something that, could absolutely be argued. So like I'm not, I'm definitely not like an accountant or like a statistics kind of guy. It makes sense, you're a bigger target the bigger you are for law enforcement. That said, you also have, counterparts to that. So like, the more bigger you are, the more money you make, the more money you have to be able to shield yourself from, attacks, whether they're cyber attacks or, the precautions of, maybe having 4 people that deliver packages and, they rotate and, maybe, John, Mike, Peter, and Paul, right? To go biblical on them. They switch up and, you have the funds where you're sending them out of state, and like, if you're in a big state, like say Texas, it's going to cost you some money. But if you're, if you have 1,000 orders a day, who really cares, So I think there's you definitely have bottlenecks in the business, but I don't think that's one because it can be offset through modifications of your operation, Now that said, one thing I will say is that the bigger it gets, I think the chances of being told on go up exponentially. Everyone says, "Oh, I'd never tell." I'm no rat, man. I'm no punk. But like, once they're facing a federal indictment and they're looking at 20 years, 40 years, me myself, I thought I was gonna get 200 years. I had never dealt with the feds, and this is what the statutes that I read had said. But like people start to see those big numbers, and me, I just kind of like resign myself to death. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna die in prison. It's completely false, and we've went over this in other videos. But a lot of people break under those conditions, and especially people who like, they're not criminals, well, they're criminals, but like they're not. It's like a culture, and they're not really part of that culture. So it really kind of throws it off for them, because like they're not the kind of people, they weren't out, jacking people or, just kind of moving like a lot of these guys, who are darknet. You have straight up cartels that are darknet vendors too, but like a lot of the people that you're going to see in this kind of business, they're more business oriented. And, I'm getting way off topic. All right. Sorry about that. I would say the more moving parts, the more complex the machinery, the harder it is to run, and the more points of failure there are. And that's from an engineering standpoint, right? Like if you're going to build a bridge and you can set it up so there's only 2 places on that bridge where it could collapse. As a structural engineer, from what I understand about structural engineering, that's what they're going to go for, as opposed to having 100 points, where it can collapse in 100 different places. They would rather have fewer of those points. So in a way, yes, but also in a way, no. It's a really good question, but it's a really difficult question to answer. And I hope that I answered it as best I could without going off topic. As far as like increasing your chance of getting caught, you have mitigating factors for almost everything. Really, as a darknet vendor, it doesn't matter if you have CIs or just straight up rats or informants coming to you, because they have nothing to inform on. What can they do? They can say, well, the last package I got from him was from Southern California. There's really not much to go on if you're doing if you're conducting yourself properly, you're doing proper OpSec, you have information security policies that are locked down, then you really shouldn't have an issue, and you can, get to those big sizes. I never got to those big sizes personally. Like, I was never selling keys and keys a blow, and I wouldn't want to be either. Way too much stress. And, I have no doubt that had I done what I was doing, for another maybe a couple of months, I would have been at that point. Because once you start to hit a certain point, I mean, it's always it seemed like to me it was always exponential growth. And I've went over, those like profit margins that I had and how business trended in that environment. And I think that had it continued, for a small duration of time, because it was so exponential growth, I would have been at that point very quickly. And, I am glad that that didn't happen, because listen, man, drug laws are no joke. You know what I mean? Like, they will put you in prison for decades. And it's not something like, you're not going to talk your way out of it. It's not something that you can turn around and say, hey man, like, you don't understand. Or like, you could turn around and you can, well, we talking code and like you're an idiot, it's just, it's something I'll highlight again. It's a really, it's a bad career move to, go down, because there's so much crap that you have to stay on top of that, like, you should be a CEO. Like, if you're going to handle that amount of stress, like, do it in a position where you can hire other people and not have to worry about going to prison for decades and having everything you worked for taken from you, because that's exactly what you're facing in this scenario, And it's like, hey man, like, you got a family, you got a wife, like the divorce rate for dudes going to prison is something like, 95%. Like, you can forget about that, and I've seen, all kinds of, she's not going to leave me. And like 3 months later, that dude's, he's crying in his cell, like, and it's just really sad. It's really unfortunate, but like, it's kind of how it is. I was lucky enough to be in that 5%, but not many are. So that said, yeah, I think, to a degree, I think, as long as you maintain proper OpSec, you can mitigate any risk that you're taking on, and if you have the funds to do it, while you have that bottleneck of now you have to send out more packages, which means more exposure, you can counteract that exposure by, doing certain things like having your people drive out of state, or something like that, or having one person, find 4 people and that guy, gives packages to them instead of you giving packages to 4 people. You cut down your exposure. But again, like, it's not, you're never going to be safe. No company's ever going to be safe, that's a fallacy. But that's one of the things that you have to get comfortable with. Like, if you're going to do this, you need to be comfortable with the fact that, like, you might get time, you know what I mean? It's a very real possibility. So it's just something to keep in mind. I hope that answered your question, dot or period, or, however you like to say it. And if you guys haven't subscribed already, and I'll see you in the next video.